I'm going to share with you how my perception of reality changes when I'm feeling powerful versus when I'm feeling powerless. And I'm going to share with you a few different tips on how you can better navigate your reality when you're feeling powerless. But before we get there, I need to lay down the groundwork. So, first of all, so much of what we take for real is actually an illusion. Free will is arguably an illusion. The ego is arguably an illusion. The soul, soulmates, heaven, God, all illusory. Even the solidness of objects, like this table or my face, is an illusion. Atoms are 98% empty space, and by the law of addition, so must be true about a collection of atoms. Mostly empty space, but this is a very persistent and persuasive illusion. Also, just the colors that we see out in the world, I look brownish orange to all of you, but to a rattlesnake, they're saying something very different because they can perceive heat. They can perceive the infrared spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. They're also missing a light cone. They have two, we have three. And so this all goes to say that the brain evolved not to perceive what is true, but to survive long enough to genetically replicate. And so right out the gate, so much of what we believe to be true is actually an illusion. Now, why is this the starting point? Because this is where my mind defaults to on most days, independent of my mood, but particularly when I'm feeling powerless. However, when I'm feeling powerful, I still see all of this. I still see the nested illusions within illusions within illusions. But in that case, when I'm in that mental state, I acknowledge that it's not a question of whether or not I believe in illusions or choose to entertain illusion. It's a question of which illusions do I choose to entertain, which illusions do I choose to believe in for pragmatic reasons. Some illusions are quite nice. Some illusions are pleasant. Some illusions are useful to indulge in order for me to get what I want out of life. Other illusions, not so pleasant, not so helpful, so I'll disregard those. Um, Morality is an illusion, but it's one that I'm very happy is part of my conscious experience, and I imagine you feel the same way. So when I'm feeling powerful, it's just a game. It's like, all right, this is what it is. This is my conscious experience. Now, how am I going to play this game? How am I going to play this game so I get what I want out of life? That's when I'm feeling powerful, feeling capable. All right, let's do this. Let's play this game. That's all well and good. But then when I'm feeling powerless, I'm looking at the same structure. I'm looking at the same dichotomy of what is real and what is illusory. Nothing's changed as far as like what is out there in the world. What's changed is how I feel about it. And when I'm feeling powerless, I feel incapable of achieving my goals. And as a cope, I start to strip away the meaningfulness of everything. I fixate on the illusions and think to myself, well, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. You know, yeah, maybe it's okay that I don't feel so powerful or so capable of achieving my goals because none of this is even real. This is all one big lie, and why bother? Why bother? So then apathy starts creeping in. Why bother? And it's a cope. It's a cope. And I know it's a cope because there are days in which I'm feeling good and it doesn't bother me that so many things about life are illusory. So I know it's a cope, and this is something I've dealt with my entire life. And so I want to share a few different tips with you that I use to help navigate this state of powerlessness. The first tip is to keep moving and stay productive. This, in and of itself, is a cope because you're not confronting the void, but the future version of yourself will thank you. You still have bills to pay. You still got to maintain your physical health. You still got to maintain an active presence in a local community. You still got to take out the trash, and you still got things to do. So keep moving and stay productive. Your future self will thank you, and if nothing else, you will momentarily not think about that discomfort, that sense of powerlessness. which is a good short-term solution. It's not a great long-term solution. And so, speaking in terms of long-term solutions, that brings us to tip number 2. It's going to sound contradictory, but don't ignore the void with distractions, Netflix, YouTube, porn. Don't deny its existence. Don't just look the other way. Don't engage in passivity, forms of cope that are passive. I supposedly keep moving and stay productive is a more active cope. You're doing things, whereas ignoring and distracting yourself, and I suppose staying productive is a form of distraction, are more, I would say, cowardly ways of dealing with this. But at least in the first tip, you do have things to do. That's kind of unavoidable. But sitting around, entertaining yourself to escape this uncomfort is not good for anyone. The third tip is really where the meat of this is. This is where you directly confront the void and you account for what makes you feel powerless. And you do this without cope. You do this without euphemisms. You do this without distractions. You do this without self-delusion. You do this without lies. And this is really the solution. The first two were kind of precursors to this. And what you'll find when you do this sort of accounting is that in spite of how you feel, you actually are powerful in some ways, and there are rooms for improvement in other ways, right? So this is a sober accounting of what is actually true in your life opposed to just how you feel about it. And that may or may not change the way, that may or may not change the powerlessness that you feel. And so the fourth tip I would say is exercise. Exercise. There's no silver bullet to any of this, but I would say exercise is probably as close as it gets to solving a lot of problems in life. Exercise. And for me, it's weightlifting or martial arts or dancing or jump rope. For you, it might be surfing or rock climbing or jogging, but just get out there and exercise because you're going to accomplish physical goals with your body. You're going to accomplish mental goals with your mind. You're going to prove to yourself that you're actually a quite powerful player in this game of illusions. And that will help combat the sense of powerlessness. And it's so accessible. Go to the gym, put on a pair of shoes and go for a run. Can't do either of those because it's raining or you don't have a gym membership. Calisthenics. You can do calisthenics at home. There's really very little to no excuse to not exercise. Even if you're in a wheelchair, you can do push-ups. You can do push-ups. So those are my 4 tips. And I hope you found this useful.